All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We got some cool piano. I love this music. Brings me back to the day when I was playing piano back in my youth. We're talking about new construction today. We're talking about all things new construction. There is a lot going on in the world of new construction policies and political effects on new construction, and seems like it's the talk of the news. So I wanted to dig into that and find out, explore some data, some articles. I did a deep dive this week about some of that information on really what it truly looks like. There's a lot of talk, right? There's a lot of talk on what could happen, what is possibility worst case scenario, what's Trump going to do, and what could happen, all these things. And tonight we're just talking about data, just the facts, man, just the facts. And I wanted to kind of dig into that, but I am super, super excited. I'm super stoked. I got a guest here that is a first timer. He's a first timer on my live stream. He's a first time live streamer. So you all be nice to him. Be gentle. Be gentle. He's a newbie. But he is one of my awesome referral partners. So I thought this was a great opportunity, and he has a great background in understanding construction. So I think he's going to bring a lot to the table. So without further ado, I want to bring out my friend. Let's see if I can get this right here, Mr. Brian Bonafetti. Let's see if I can get. Here we go.
That's how my grandma used to say it.
Mr. Brian Bonafetti, how you doing, my friend?
Great. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing awesome. If I can figure out all my buttons. I often say, like, you don't have to worry about this stuff, but menopause is not fun because your brain goes out the window. You know what? You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to remind me that you don't have to deal with it, Brian. We'll just leave it right there. We got Beth R in the house. Good to see you. Glad to have you on board here. Brian, we got to talk about some new construction. I mean, we had some nice conversation the other day about your where your knowledge base. And oh, by the way, the one thing I didn't say in the introduction is where you're from. California, yeah. San Jose area, sunny California, San Jose, right outside, just south of San Francisco, I believe, right? That area.
You have exact.
All right. Hey, I do my homework. I tried. All those days, back in the days when my parents, do your homework. I do it now. I do it now.
More than you did high school, probably, right?
Yes, most definitely. But yeah, so I'm excited to hear your input on some of this new construction stuff, because I know that you said you do a lot of like rehabs, renovations and whatnot, right?
That's correct. A lot of rehabs. A lot of my clients that I flip my clients' houses for them, basically, right? Why give an investor or a builder to make the money themselves, where I can just put money in my client's house and help them remodel it themselves to make them top dollar.
And that's awesome. I mean, so you were handling like just in terms of like so that folks know what your credentials were. It wasn't you weren't the real estate agent that was saying do this. I mean, you were GCing some of these things. You were in charge and having, I guess you were rubbing elbows with the contractors and the subcontractors and having to deal with labor or lack thereof, if somebody is, not available or whatnot. Correct?
That's correct. I was fortunate enough, Jen, growing up in construction, my dad had a lot of apartments. So guess what I did during the summertime? I was out modeling, doing carpet and all construction, everything you could possibly think of. Then I got my general contractor license, and then I just went into real estate. It was kind of like an easy migration. So I have a really good diverse background that way.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with a good day's hard work, right?
That's exactly
right. I think the youth need that more. I am turning into my parents. I swear to God, those whippersnappers. Too many screens.
Trust me.
Man.
The same way.
Good grief. Nicole in the house. Welcome. Glad to have you here. All right, let's dig into this stuff because I want to get this conversation going. and see where this takes us. So, this article was on. I have a couple articles from Business Insider, but this article kind of dug into what truly from the home builder's perspective, what is actually going on in terms of the new construction impact. So it's home builders fear Trump's mass deportations would inflate costs and make it even harder to hire. So the article says that home building industry leaders and economists say that President-elect Donald Trump's plans to implement the largest deportation effort in American history could kickstart a chain reaction that ultimately sends home prices higher. The last thing we need right now, Brian. The issue is the construction labor force, whose 500,000 worker shortage, which I'm going to get into, I got some stats on that, is already making conditions more challenging. Even fewer workers would mean fewer completed homes. That inventory shortage is then seen driving higher prices. Since immigrants make up a large part of that group, I have data for that too. Housing economists and home builders worry that deportations and crackdowns could make the ongoing shortage worse, ultimately leading to more price increases. Foreign-born workers make up about a quarter, I was very surprised about this, a quarter of the construction workforce, an estimated 15 to 23% of that overall workforce are undocumented immigrants. Foreign-born workers are particularly overrepresented in the home building trades, including plastering, constructing, drywall, and painting. Eric Finnegan, Vice President of Demographics Research at John Burns, told Business Insider that if mass deportation happens, a lot of home building, remodeling, and repairing comes to a standstill, and or prices go up by a lot. A lot. Question mark. How much? We don't know. Even before concrete action is taken, the mere prospect of crackdown could scare away workers and hurt the construction industry, economists and home builders say. The threat of it will be felt immediately and very viscerally among people who are working in the construction sector. Ben Metcalf, a housing policy expert at the University of California, out your way, Brian, in Berkeley, told Business Insider, just even the talk of mass deportations could send a chill through the entire immigrant employment sector. This is coming from Jim Tobin, who's the CEO of National Association of Home Builders. Before I go any further, I kind of want to double back and actually, you know what? I'm going to finish up with this article and then we'll kind of dissect it. How's that?
Sure.
It says Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance have repeatedly pushed back on these notions. From the perspective of housing prices, they have said that deporting immigrants would bring down housing costs by reducing demand for homes. I have stats on that. In the September address, Trump said that Americans shouldn't ignore the impact millions of illegal aliens have on driving up housing costs. Vance, I'm going to dive into that too. Vance has also recently refuted the idea that deportations and tougher immigration would deplete the construction workforce, arguing that there are ample displaced American workers ready to take those jobs. Question mark. Debatable. One of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society is it gets us in a mindset of saying that we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million just men, not even women, just men who are completely dropped out of the labor force. Okay. Let's discuss, Brian. Let's discuss. Okay. I'm going to go back, and I think the first thing I want to talk about here is on the let's see, the dire need. Okay, so the shortage, because they talk about the shortage, right? And because here's the thing, right? Like, you have these articles, and they make all these statements and these bold claims. I am not okay with just that one statement. I want to know more data, right?
Sure.
And then I'm interested to hear, because you're boots on the ground with a lot of this stuff. So I'm interested to hear after we start getting to this data if you concur about if this sounds about right. So this is like the labor shortage, And, and in terms of, you know, the dire need for new construction workers. And this is right from the National Association of Home Builders. And it says America will need thousands of new skilled workers to reduce the nation's housing deficit, new skilled construction workers. Shortfall estimates about 1.5 million homes. Okay, I would agree with that. It says the key findings, they did a report based on the nation's construction labor market, and they estimate, says the estimated required amount of construction worker hiring is 723,000 per year, right? As of August. Now this is including undocumented immigrants, right? This is the whole labor force. As it sits right now, it says as of August, the 6-month moving average of new residential construction worker hiring is 5,667 per month. Okay. And it goes into wages and earnings and so forth. It says women make up a growing share of construction employment, reaching 10.8% in 2023, up significantly from 9.1% in 2017. Let's go. That's awesome. But I mean, I think the thing is, and actually I'm going to switch off here and take a look, because I had another article that I wanted to dig into that that had the stats on the actual job numbers. But, because it was in the vicinity of like 523,000 is where we were, and we need about 200,000. We're about 200,000 short.
Sure.
In workers. Okay. I'm gonna let you I want to hear what I'm gonna. You can tell I'm a little passionate about this whole subject, So what are you seeing, like in in your neck of the woods? Like what do you make of this?
Well, it's interesting, right? A lot of it's politics driven, which we can't. We're talking middle of the road here, as we talk about Jen all the time.
Yep.
I kind of study my local market more than I do national market. Just like and California is a big market. Some of my biggest clients I meet with regularly, once every couple of weeks, are some of the largest concrete construction, big housing development guys that pour a lot of concrete. And right now, there's a shortage. A lot of these houses are on hold right now, and a lot has to do with the interest rates. Interest rates going up, and they've seen the market slow down, right?
Right.
So when we're talking about housing shortages and stuff, Jen, as we study this and as we know, there's 34 million millennials ready to jump off the fence at any time to buy a house, and there's a huge shortage of housing, right? Yep. So they want to build more, but when you look at historically 2008, when we had the Great Recession, let's go back really quick to 2000 when we had the dot-com crash, right? And then we had the recession, but then the 2008 recession was the big real estate recession that we had. It was mostly real estate related. Home builders scaled way back. I think it was 5 million units a year from data from memory top of my head to 2 million a year, right? Yep. So we're still playing catch up from 2008, and then you couple on top the COVID problem that we had, and then the builders scaled back again. So the demand is so high for real estate, and they can't keep up. This is the reason why we have a high real estate costs, is because of supply and demand. Now, you couple that with regulations across the board. From every town's different when it comes to regulation. Yep. This is a big problem that we're having. So, the big home builders right now are kind of on pause in our area, and these are big projects until they feel that their interest rates are going to start coming down. So until people start jumping off the fence. Yep. So in California, it might be a little different than the Midwest or back east. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, you bring up a good point. Actually, I had an article on that, the labor shortage and the numbers that you just mentioned, actually. And this article was this is coming from Construct Connect is where the article's at. Why is there a labor shortage in construction? And it says, why are we seeing labor shortage, growing demand to fill job openings in the industry involves many factors. These factors can feel difficult to tackle, overcome. Key influences include a retiring workforce, a rising demand, a labor demand, and a lack of skilled workers. It says, let's look at the big picture over time. During the pandemic, like you just mentioned, the construction industry lost over 1 million jobs. That loss set the industry back from the previous 8 years of growth. Let's say that again. That 1 year, that loss during the pandemic set us back. So instead of gaining construction to help make up for that deficit, right? Because we know all these new home buyers are coming in. I mean, people just having babies.
Sure.
Too many babies, too many millennials coming in the market that are of home buying age, and you can't just you got to come up with the house. You kind of, retirees are not moving from their homes, so they're not introducing their homes back in the market. So the housing's got to come from somewhere. New construction's where it's at, and it says that loss sets back 8 years. However, the loss was short-lived because construction is vital. After the pandemic in April 22, a record-breaking 11.8 million people were employed in the industry. In December 2022, there were 413,000 job openings. In July 2023, 378,000. The most recent numbers in November 2023 were $459,000. This article was August of 24 is when and this is these are the shortages, and they go on to say, a lot of things that we talk about on this channel is, the fact that, there's a significant shortage of a trained workforce, and significant shortage of skilled workers in the industry, starting at the high school level, right? And the reality of it is that if you have that deficit to begin with, now let's talk about the actual, the topic of the conversation is what happens. We can't ignore the fact that we've got this policy. We've got a president-elect who has policies.
Sure.
He's not even in the White House yet, but he has an agenda. And he has said on day one, he says after yesterday, at day one, this is my first priority. He's going to, tackle the immigration concerns of America. Okay, the illegal, sure, undocumented immigration. Just to be clear, just to be 100% clear. So we don't know the policies haven't been enacted yet. So we don't know how, we don't know how many, we don't know where he's, how he's going to attach that, how he's going to attack it. All we can do now is base our assumptions or our predictions based on what he has said, and what he has said in terms of the number of people that he wants to pull out of the workforce. The reason why it's so detrimental is because actually these numbers here, Brian. So sure, this is the Census Bureau data as of 2022. And this was very, very telling, right? This is why I have the thumbnail with a help wanted sign in the front of it. Okay? Because if all of a sudden these undocumented workers are pulled off the job site, this is the impact on the construction field. So as of right now, it says that, this is the, it says Business Insider found that which industries could be most impacted by deportations based on their share of immigrant workers per the most recent Census Bureau data as of 2022. The data breaks down 13 major sectors by the number of native-born citizens, naturalized citizens, and non-U.S. citizens working in each. Immigrants in the U.S. illegally are included in the Census Bureau estimates. Okay, so we're talking not U.S. citizens is the column that we're looking at. People that are undocumented illegal immigrants.
Big numbers.
21.5%. That's
numbers.
A big number. That again, we're doing worst case scenario. Again, we don't know what he's going to, what will actually happen.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying, right? And we don't know what will actually happen. But if we go to the, when you're trying to imagine, how bad can it get? Well, this is worst case scenario.
Sure.
Do I think it's going to get to that point? No, I don't. It's always the somewhere it usually settles in between, right? And hopefully some.
I kind of agree with you on that, Jen. I kind of agree with you on that because the first time he came into power as a presidency, we're talking about Donald Trump, as you know. California has a lot of construction, going on, and especially in the Bay Area projects. And coming from my personal experience, it's just when I'm dealing with my subcontractors and contractors, a lot of them came to me just really, really worried back then. And this is what, 2016 was it? I think it was when he came in the first time. 2000.
Yep.
Yeah, 2016.
2016, 2020. Yep.
Well, and you're trying to keep everybody's fears calm, right? Because there's a lot of noise out there. And I basically just say, listen, just keep working hard, keep your head down, do the best you possibly can, and things will work out. And luckily, fast forward to now, they're still doing very well. And I go back again and ask them, Jen, it's interesting. I said, so are you concerned again? They said, well, you know what? I'm paying taxes. I'm contributing to society. I'm praying that it's going to be okay again.
Right.
And so you just got to be optimistic about, the approach of how they're going to do it. Is it going to be different now? We don't know. We just got to hope for the best. But I'm kind of optimistic about it. Just, and from a standpoint is, hopefully they'll take care of people. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to, because the implications on, I mean, the housing market and the housing sector is the largest segment of our economy. And if the housing market is not doing well, the whole economy is in trouble. And that's just right, because of the fact that it balloons out from, as we know, it balloons out from, it's not just buying and selling a house. It is the infinite number of businesses that are affected by that purchase, by that sale.
20%.
Exactly. Yes. So, and it's so to have an industry that we have already facing huge problems because of the unaffordability issues in this country. We're at decades low for affordability. It's horrendous on how unaffordable it is in this country.
It's not going to get any better, right? The demand is so high, population is growing so fast. All the kids came back from college at COVID, and I'm one of them, right? My kids came back from college and shacked up with parents again. They're all got jobs now, and they all want to jump off the fence and buy something. And when interest rates start dropping, it's a matter of time. Yep. They're all going to jump off the fence at the same time. And you thought we had a housing shortage now. We haven't even seen anything yet.
No. Sandy says, so is this chart saying the construction labor force will decrease by 21.5%? Trying to understand. Yes. So what that chart is saying is that out of the entire construction labor force, that the number of non-U.S. citizens that are currently working in that labor force is 21.5%. So say if on some level, our president-elect waves his magic wand and all the undocumented illegal immigrants that are in this country vanish. They're gone. Our labor force for construction will decrease by 21.5%. That's what that is. And it's not even, and if you go down the list, you'll see that's construction is the top tier. It's also agriculture and forestry. It's hunting. It's hospitality, the cleaning services. It's the folks in the, wholesale, or mining, manufacturing. All that, it goes right down the list. We're not going to talk about those because that's not our wheelhouse. We're going to just focus on construction and housing. But that's the impact of if that happens, for sure. So Kenny says, hope for the best, hope for the best, prep for the worst, scare for Trump years. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. I mean, here's my little mini TED talk. It's not even a TED talk. My little words of wisdom, my little Oprah moment here. Worry is wasted energy. You cannot worry about things you cannot control.
100%.
That's what I tell myself every day as I have a college kid at home and a kid going off to college next year. We can't, because the reality of it is we're having this conversation, but Brian, it hasn't happened yet.
Well, not only that, you have to really look at, it's interesting and I'm aging myself, but I'm an older X generation. I'm right below the baby boomer, right? So I was born in '66, just so everybody knows.
Yep.
Right? And what'd you do when you grew up? My parents made us, my dad especially, go outside, work on the house, do construction, trim trees, whatever you have to do. But that's what we did, right?
Yep.
And a lot of these houses now, in general, just speaking in general, I don't know how it is anywhere else in the United States, but a lot of a lot of people that are millennials and younger that are buying houses, they really don't know how to do the painting and fixing up houses like they did when we grew up. So they're looking for more turnkey houses. And with that said, um, it's putting impact on shortages that way as well. So
Yeah.
when we go to sell houses, Jen, just so you know, we like to make sure houses are turnkey when they move in,
Yep.
because they really don't know how to paint or do anything themselves. It's
Yes. Yeah.
and
And that's the truth. That is absolutely the truth. And it's kind of, I've seen, I mean, I've been, in this industry since 96, and I have seen a huge change from 96 over the last 10 years, even in terms of what their starter home looks like. Now there's a lot of people that are absolutely willing to pick up a paintbrush, right? There's a
sure.
lot of hardworking young people that are willing to do the work and and make and buy the fixer upper and all the things. But the number of people that are doing that nowadays has absolutely decreased. Just going through the comments here, guys. Let's see. Hugh says, "Good to have you here, Hugh." Non-U.S. citizen include both legal immigrants who do not have any citizenship yet. That's a good question. It's my understanding, potentially yes, and that's an issue in itself, in my opinion, in this country. Not to go down, I want to go down the immigration rabbit hole, but I think that I was talking to someone the other day, Ryan, and the amount of time it takes to become a citizen in this country is ridiculous.
They could just speed that process up, then we
Speed up
wouldn't
the
have to
process, get them to, and then they can start pulling their weight and pay the taxes. I mean, this article does go on to say that, I think it's this one. Is it this article? It might be a different article. It went into, in terms of what they're paying in taxes, and a lot of these folks are contributing to society.
Sure.
But in any event, we won't go down that rabbit hole. We're talking about housing. Let's see here. Let's see. Jessica says, if a couple has a child and is unable to care for it properly, their response is to not having more children by the same virtue. Yeah. I mean, okay, so this is not a fair comparison, but it's a comparison nonetheless. I love pets. I love animals. But if you don't have enough money to put food on the table, you shouldn't have any pets. But how many do? I'll just leave that there. That's just my observation. That's my observation. Or you could say the same thing, Brian, about the cell phone. I don't know about you. My first, again, I sound like I am not here to judge people. Hey, you know what? This is a free country. You do you, right? My first apartment was a tiny little studio with my, to-be husband, $300 a month, and driving a car, a old Buick Skylark with bad brakes, because that's all we could afford. We didn't buy anything on credit. It was hard. It was not comfortable. But we figured it out. Now, these kids, a lot of young people, old people, my generation even, we become a little maybe too comfortable. Anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. All right. Let's see. Knift, I think you've been here before. I think I hope I'm CNITF. Maybe I should lock in my new build soon. So here's the thing is that if we look at home prices, Brian, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on this. So, researching all this information, when you have, and it's supply and demand, right? Mm-hmm. When you have lack of supply, but you have existing demand, you have one widget that 10 people want versus 5 widgets that 2 people want. If you have less widgets than you have people that want to buy the widget, guess what happens to the widget? The prices go up.
Yeah, and I 100%. You should lock in that new build as soon as possible. I just sold a house to one of my best friends from junior high many years ago. I helped him downsize to a bigger house, believe it or not, and take a lot of money off the table to a new development. It's a 55 and over community, and his build is 4 months into it, and it's gone up $100,000 since he bought it. So and it's because of the supply and demand, because the prices are going up.
Yep.
Not like California's costs are a little bit higher than anywhere else in the United States, as you can imagine.
Yep.
So with interest rates going up, cost of materials going up, labor going up, natural inflation, the best asset to have is real estate, because as inflation goes up, people's assets go up, and locking in a real estate is the key to the whole thing. So getting in a new build, higher interest rates now, yeah, a little bit, but in the future they'll come down. You just we call it date your rate, marry your house.
Oh, don't say that. I hate that.
Hey, that's
I don't
just,
mind, and I hope you don't mind. I mean, I don't know.
no, no, no.
Speak my truth. So I'm going to speak my truth, and I don't like that saying. I don't like that saying because my firm belief is you should be able to. Now, I mean, assuming that they can afford.
Sure.
You need to be afford the payment today. And
Yes.
if the rate happens to go down, then
Yes.
great, right?
Finance.
Which is a little different. The whole date the rate, or date marry the house was like a sales tactic to get home buyers into homes that they couldn't afford, because they were buying on the presumption that the rate would go down, and then they refinance, and that is not cool. That's not cool. But
the banks are so strict nowadays, right? If
Yep.
you could afford, if your debt to income ratio, if you could afford to buy a house on your income, the bank's not going to give money like they did in 2008.
Yeah.
That's the problem the first time, right? If
Yep.
if you qualify from a major bank with a loan, with the principal, interest, tax, and insurance, my personal recommendation, what I would do is I would lock myself into a 7-1 or a 10-1 arm, meaning it's fixed for 10 years. And then as the rates fall down below what your current rate would be,
Yep.
then you would refinance it, right? And
Yeah, I think you got to look at your you got to assess your risk tolerance. You got to assess your risk tolerance. If you are in a situation where you don't think you're going to have any substantial increases in your income, if you have done your homework, you've done your budget, and you're in a payment that you can afford, it's not great, but you can afford it. But you
Sure.
wouldn't be able to afford to weather the storm if the rates went up, because the adjustment period goes by and then the economy doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and all the and
Sure.
all the things. We're in a high inflationary period. Then you're in trouble. Then you should do a 30-year fixed and then just refinance. Just refinance, right? As opposed to going into something that is, lower, artificially lower, that could go up. And then if it goes up, if you can afford for it to go up, and you
Sure.
can weather that storm, totally different. But if you're
Yes.
if you're marginal, I think, you know what, I very much am not a gambler, Brian. I am like, you know what, play it safe. Play it safe, because the last thing you want to do is get yourself in trouble if all of a sudden things go sideways, because especially now, we don't know what's
Sure.
going to happen with this new administration. It's a whole, there are a lot of changes that could absolutely should be for the good, but there are
Sure.
a lot of changes that could put us in a temporary position of not good. It could be. There's a lot of talk of inflation. There's a lot of talk of inflation with tariffs and the execution of tariffs, and I know President-elect Trump was talking about released some information today about some more proposals. Again, everything's up in the air, but if the tariffs do become reality, I think they will to a certain degree at some point. There's a lot of institutions, a lot of major, retailers that are already bracing for increased home prices, increased pricing. Walmart, Target are already getting ready to increase their prices. So, anyways, another, you know what I mean?
I think 10 years would maybe be. I'm very conservative myself, but I think 10 years is not too much of a gamble. Personally, I feel.
Yep.
10 years is a long horizon for rates to. We have economic cycles. Supposed to be every 7 years.
That's true. That's true.
So I think 10 years would be a safe bet. But if you could afford the 30 years and you don't mind spending a little bit more now and then refinance later, then that's fine as well.
Yep.
It just depends on your threshold of risk.
Yes. just going to catch up on the comments here. Hugh says, if you come to the U.S. as a legal immigrant, you expect to wait 5 years before you can apply for U.S. citizenship. That is wrong. That is wrong. That needs to be addressed.
Accelerated.
What's that?
Accelerated. My wife's
Yeah.
got, and it's 15 years by the time their visas came. So it just you have to it has to be an easier system, right?
Yep.
Hopefully they'll work on that.
Yeah, I'm getting. I apologize if I'm skipping over any comments here. I'm just getting cut. I'm trying to get caught up here. Lisa says legal immigrants and a lot of illegal pay taxes. Yes, they do. And I have data here somewhere to that extent, because I think it's something to keep in the overall arcing situation that we're in. In terms of the impact on illegal immigrants. I wish, too many articles, not enough time, Brian. It is what it is. I knew I had some information on that, and gosh darn if I could. Here it is. Boom.
You got it.
I knew I would find it. So this is another take on, this was a visual capitalist. I am not familiar with this website per se. Recent data I thought was interesting. Talk about the American Immigration Council. So the data from the Census Bureau, which is why I featured that first, because I feel like that is a little bit more potentially reliable. This American Immigration Council, I don't know where they're coming from. The numbers are a little bit lower, 13.7%. And it says the agriculture, hospitality. Here's the information I was looking for. It says undocumented immigrants' contributions. California, Texas, Florida are home to 47%. That's interesting. Of the nation's undocumented immigrants in 2022 alone, undocumented immigrants' households contributed significantly to the U.S. economy. Federal taxes, $46.8 billion. State and local taxes, $29.3 billion. Social Security contributions, $22.6 billion, and Medicare contributions, $5.7 billion. Additionally, about 1.5 million U.S. Citizen children live with an undocumented family member. We have to consider all the things, right, when we're looking at the big picture, because, and I'm sure, the powers that are people that are way smarter than us, hopefully are considering how it's going to impact the whole picture. I don't want to spend too much time on that, because I want to focus on the issue at hand, right? With, in terms of the housing market. But it was just very interesting to see those numbers, I feel. Polly, good to have you here. Says, hey Jen, offer refused today by seller. They said they were afraid that FHA appraiser being stuck to their house for 120 days. That the appraisal being stuck to their house for 120 days. What did they say? They would work with us and go FHA, then say no? Let's read that again. So it sounds like they were. It sounds like the seller was a little bit, or I should say the listing agent, because remember, a lot of this information, when you're dealing with submitting an offer to a seller, it has to go through the seller's agent. And if the seller's agent does not present the offer in an educated manner, maybe they are not fully educated on FHA, maybe they have a skewed vision or opinion of FHA appraisals. I'm not sure what it means. FHA appraisal being stuck to their house for 120 days. Maybe because
right.
Yeah, actually, you know what? When an FHA appraisal is done, it's filed, right? It has to be documented so that if another buyer comes through, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Brian, if another buyer comes through, they will see that existing FHA appraisal.
That might be the case, but sometimes when I'm looking at this, maybe the house has a lot of issues. Maybe the seller didn't want to take the buyer.
I don't know. I think that there's a lot in my opinion, it's all that 80%, 20% that I talk a lot about on this channel, or 80% of the agents really don't know they're not skilled and not trained. They're not educated fully in their profession, and they don't understand, how FHA appraisals work. I see this with VA as well. See this all the time with VA appraisals, VA loans, where a listing agent who doesn't understand VA will talk their seller out of accepting an offer with a VA loan because they don't understand the nuances and they're nervous and they think it's a negative thing. A lot of people will look at FHA loans as a negative thing. And the sad part is that it's not a negative thing at all, but the gatekeeper is the listing agent. And it stinks, Polly. It stinks, but your hands are tied at that point with in terms of you can't get past the gatekeeper. So that would be the only reason.
Very strong too. I mean, if you got a fully underwritten loan with FHA and VA, they're pretty good to go.
I mean, I would say I would check with your lender and see if, depending on how much, if you're doing FHA, you may or may not be putting down minimal down payment. I'm not sure how much you're putting down for down payment, but some lenders can do a desktop underwriting, and they can put it through their system to see what the desktop underwriter appraisal number comes up. It's not a full appraisal number, but it'll give them a general idea of if you're in the right ballpark. So if you're on the line that this property might be valued a little too high, then it might be more of a risk. But I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough situation. I wish I had a magic wand to fix it for you. Alas, I do not. Sandy says, haha, my first apartment was a dump. I had a TV my parents gave me. It sat on the floor for 2 years. Okay, so fun fact. My to-be husband at the time, we were engaged. Okay, get this. This is going to sound weird. We furnished our first apartment from the dump. Let me explain. We live so I'm in Plymouth. We have a town called Duxbury. Duxbury is just the north of us. It's also known as Deluxebury. A lot of affluent people live there. A lot. Deluxebury has their town dump, and in their town dump has a town mall. And in that town mall, these affluent people would take their items that really don't deserve to go in the landfill. A lot of the stuff is brand new. And instead of putting it in the landfill, they would put it in the Duxbury Mall. And people would go there every weekend and pick through and be like, and the stuff was like totally fine. Like totally like great. Like really, really, really good condition great. And when you have no money.
My wife, when I had my first apartment, my wife didn't like my futon.
Yeah. You gotta,
right?
Yeah, you gotta do. Hey, you know what? It's all about survival.
Yes.
It's all about survival. Jessica says, I bought a home built in 1920 and slowly remodeling. Great bones, just ugly. Wish there were tax breaks for us doing the work, saving history too. Amen. I love that idea. What do you think? I mean, to encourage people, Brian, to buy older homes that, I think that to have, I mean, you think about this, you have incentives. It seems like, I feel like you've been in this business a long time, like I have. I feel like there were incentives at one point in time before the great financial crisis. I feel like there were incentives for remodeling.
There's always sort of certain parts of the towns and certain towns that have older houses. They want to keep them. They're historic. First of all, they're not going to want to tear them down.
Yep.
So they do have incentives for them, but it just depends on local county and local cities which ones come out at which times.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, whether you're a Trump supporter or not, Trump likes tax breaks. He likes businesses. He's if one side of the table versus the other, I am never gonna say which side, whatever I favor or agree with, whatever. But he definitely leans more towards tax breaks, putting more, trying to help out, giving people a break in that regard. Where the money comes from is to be determined, because it's got to come from somewhere. But maybe. What do you think, Brian?
Oh, he's a real estate developer, right? And a real estate
Yep.
guy himself. So hopefully, he's looking after the real estate people.
You know what? I secretly hope that helps us. Excuse me. I secretly hope that because of his background, it helps the industry. Kelly says, "Why lock in? Can't they say no like they did during the pandemic? Why lock it in? Can't they say no?" Are you referring to rates or new construction? What are you referring to there, Kelly? I apologize. I don't what part of the conversation we were on when you put that comment. Let's see. Jessica says paid cash late August for our 1920 traditional concrete masonry home. Good for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, those old style houses are beautiful. It just they don't build them like that anymore.
Yep. Okay. Oh, okay. I love this comment. Kniff says, all the local realtors on YouTube keep saying, buy, buy, buy. Great market. What's the best way to get a less biased view on the market? Okay, I'm going to tell you, do not listen to anyone that doesn't know your situation. Don't do it. Because you know what? As I've said, and I repeat this ad nauseum, the time to buy, the time to sell has nothing to do with the market. The market is irrelevant. The market is there, and it may impact your personal situation, but it's always your personal situation. Should you buy a house today? My answer is going to be, what is your situation? Do you have the money? Do you have the budget? Do you have reserves? How solid are you on your employment? How solid are you in your family situation? Are you in a job that you might get relocated? Are you in a position where you can sit in your house for the next 5 to 7 years in case we do have softening of prices? Okay, if you have that ability, if you answer all those things, all your ducks in a row, then why wait? There's no reason to wait. There's a good time to buy at any 12 months out of the year. The market never stops moving. Why? Because, Brian, people die. They put their houses on the market. People get divorced. They put their houses on the market. My parents moved here. We moved here in the 80s. We closed. There was 4 kids. They had my baby sister was born here, but we had 4 kids in tow. Closed end of December. Who does that? Oh, wait, my dad was relocated because of his job. That's why. That's why. So there's always a need, which means there's always going to be new property coming on, and you don't need a lot to choose from because you're only buying one house. You're only buying one house. So that one house might be available in January by a family that's selling their parents' house because the parent passed away, and they just want to get the thing done because they don't want to have to deal with, taking care of the property. It's empty and all that kind of. You can get a great deal in January. But if you don't have the down payment, your budget's not solid, you don't have reserves, your employment's not solid, all the things, nope, it's not a good time to buy. That is my soapbox. I'm going to get off of it.
So, Jen, what's the statistics that show the average renter, their net worth versus an average homeowner?
Oh, gosh. Off the top of my head,
I think it's like $40,000 as an average, and that just we're talking about building wealth through real estate, right? I believe wealth. I believe in real estate. So when I say buy, the best creation of gaining wealth in history is real estate.
Oh, there's no question. And I would say, there's a lot of schools of thought. I actually did a video about this, about how a lot of aging baby boomers are selling and not buying, and they're going to rent. And I think that there is a case for some people, depending on your circumstance, to not buy another home. I think that my brother is he is, is in the stock market. He does the stock. He makes a lot of money with, investments and all the things. And we've had this discussion. I've had this long-standing discussion with him that, he says, well, the amount of money he'd get in appreciation versus the amount of money that he'd get in investments and so forth. Could that be a reality? Yes. Is that the average everyday typical consumer? No.
Sure.
No. Your home, you set it, you forget it, you build your wealth over time, because over the course of the last 50 years, the market adjusts up, adjusts down, adjusts up, adjusts down, adjusts up. It never goes to the back. When I first got into this industry in 1996, I sold a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, 2-car garage, Cape on an acre and a half for $125,000. That house right now is probably about $800,000. It will never be $125,000. It will never.
The first house here in San Jose, it's a standard 4-bedroom, 2-bath. He paid $17,500. Today, that house is worth $1.6 million.
And
1966, right? It's inflation, right?
Natural inflation. It is. And let's not, kid ourselves. We're going to have an adjustment. There will be an adjustment at some point. That's the nature of the market. The market has to adjust to, to go through the cycle. But the thing is it'll adjust. And then that's why I say, if you're going to buy, be in that house for at least, I wouldn't even say 5 to 7. I would say 7 years or more. Because if you are, then you can ride the wave. And if that market goes down, this is the thing, Brian, right? Markets go down and people freak out. Oh my God, my house is worth less. My house is worth less. Well, are you moving? Well, no. The money's not real.
Yes.
The money's not real. My house, I don't even look at the value of my house. Why? Because I'm not selling anytime soon. It doesn't matter. I can't go to my house, people. Okay, you could do an equity line of credit, use your house like an ATM. Please, for the love of God, don't do this. Please don't do this. Okay, but it's not real actual money. So why you don't need to worry about it now. It's only when you go to sell that it's real money.
Jen, it's funny you say that. It's like I'm the worst when it comes to the stock market. I watch that ticker every single day, and it drives my wife nuts. Real estate, I don't look at my real estate every day, right? I mean, 5 years later, 10 years later. And I think the average person, I remember 10 or 15 years ago, was living in their house for an average 7 to 10 years. I think now it's 15 to 20 years. So you're starting to see a bigger, there's another demand why there's not enough housing. It's because people aren't moving.
Well, I mean, I've been in my house for 24 years. I'm only 52. And I'm in my house 20, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but, I had no need to move. So Hugh says, I had worked with a working visa and paid taxes for 8 years before I became a permanent resident this year. Congratulations. I am very sorry. Now I'm very sorry that is 8 years. Is now I have to wait for 5 more years. The system's broken. The system's kicking everyone out is not the only answer. It's a complicated issue. Kelly says concrete blocks held up the TV. Let's go. You know what? You do what you got to do to survive.
100%.
Now people are, what people consider survival? Having internet with streaming services. I'm like, my money's so tight, I have to cancel a streaming service. Oh, woe was me. It's like, oh, for the love of God. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Let's see. Jessica says incentives would absolutely help alleviate the home shortage. Yes. I think that there's got to be some sort of there's got to be an incentive to help offset people to, incentivize people to put their houses on the market and make that move and make it less painful. It's a tough situation. Tariffs are the opposite of tax breaks. Can we just spend 5 minutes talking about tariffs? Because there's so much information about tariffs. So tariffs on the housing industry and let's talk about specifically how it's going to affect, and I don't have any articles on this. Actually, I did last week, but that is something that I would advise everybody watching. This is something we got to watch. We got to watch and how it affects what actually happens. with the housing industry and the actual policies that are enacted on day one. What is being, scheduled, implemented. Thank you. So, because what happens with tariffs are not a tariff to China for 25%. China's not paying that. Okay, that cost is being passed on to the builder, which will be passed on to the home buyer. If all of a sudden you have the drywall that's being shipped in, it's being purchased from China. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Brian. Purchased from China. Oh, there's a 25% tariff in order to bring it into the country. Okay, now that builder who's purchasing it has to pay that extra tariff to get that into the country. It's costing him more. This is why the tariffs exist, because the whole idea is to get people to not buy overseas and create more companies here and buy locally. Because if you buy it from a business in US, you don't pay the tariffs. If you buy it from China, you pay the tariffs. Well, now that builder is paying, $125 instead of $100 for this drywall, and he's putting it in new construction. Now what's going to happen with that home price to compensate for the cost? On top of potentially having to hire more workforce, bringing people into the workforce, which, I wanted to talk about that too before I forget. I'm going to cue it up so that, yes, I wanted to get to that, but we got so much. I really appreciate all you guys and all your conversation, your comments. I absolutely really appreciate all you guys and all your thank you for being here. Polly says, correct. My lender fully funded the FHA. I'm receiving down payment assistance from IHCDA and Indiana Housing Community Development, $9,000. That's awesome. The seller's property listed for $135. We offered $145. Good grief. That's a case of what do you think, Brian? I think it's a listing agent that doesn't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. The seller property listed $135. We offered $140, and they have not taken her offer.
That's wrong. You know what I would almost say, Brian, and I don't know what you feel about this, but in a situation like that, if I was the buyer's agent, I, as a buyer's agent, cannot approach the seller directly. Right. That we can't do that. Violation of our code of ethics. If you're a realtor, you can't do that. Okay. There is nothing, absolutely nothing saying that a buyer can't write a letter to the seller and leave it in their mailbox. Don't leave it in their mailbox. It's violating. It's against it's a federal offense to actually put something in someone's mailbox. But leave it on their front steps. Right? A letter that you can't, there's nothing saying a buyer can't interact with a seller. Do we advise it? No, because we want to be able to counsel them to make sure they don't give personal information, and we want to violate, we don't want to compromise their negotiation position.
Sure.
But in a situation like this, where you're at a standstill, I would say to the buyer, I would say to you, Polly, write a letter with all your documentation, have your agent help you. Make sure you don't give them information that you don't want them to have, and just leave it on the front steps of the seller. Bypass. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? If you have a listing agent that absolutely has no idea what they're doing.
Right. Well, it's at 3.5% down, if I remember right, is what FHA needs for a minimum of a down payment, and they're giving her $9,000. So really, she needs $5,075 in order to qualify for the down payment. I just don't know the details of if she's not in contract right now, or she's having issues not getting a contract, and maybe the seller's just waiting for another offer to come in.
But say she's got the money. Let's just assume that she's got the money. She's got all her stuff. She's got her lender is fully funded. Assuming she has. Let's assume she has all her ducks in a row.
Sure.
Would you think it'd be appropriate for her to write a letter to the seller? And then if the seller is like, no, I'm not comfortable, then there's nothing you can do. The seller, you can't force the seller. But at least you'll know if it's a listing agent that's being,
truthful,
truthful and is blocking the deal.
Yeah. right? By law, they're supposed to show all the offers that they received.
Well, and ethically, they should know what the hell they're talking about. Excuse my language. Uh, Kelly, new construction. So I think you're talking about why lock it in? They can't say no, like they did during why lock it in? Can't they say no? Um, are you referring to maybe locking in on a new construction and the new construction and the builder says they're not building it? You think that's what
Yeah,
she's talking about?
I
So this is
think.
a totally different situation, potentially. I guess maybe not though, because if we hypothesize, not hypothesize, but if we I guess I don't know whatever looking for. I don't know. Say for example they lock in. She locks in, right? And she gets a deal with a builder. It's a smaller builder, or maybe not. But the builder is building with 20% of his workforce being undocumented illegal immigrants. And then all of a sudden, things change. And he loses 15% of his workforce. And now he has to hire outside, he has to hire potentially replacements that cost more money, which negative now he's got a situation where he can't afford to sell it at the number that he previously committed.
Well, it depends, right? Do they
It's a sticky situation.
have a good contract, right? I mean, some of these big developers, the ones that I deal with, they're pretty large, and you have a contract. It's written, it's in writing. Maybe you do some upgrades, you pay for the upgrades, and your price is locked in. Some of the smaller buildings that are doing spec builds, maybe one or two houses at a time, that might be a different situation. So, Kelly, I'm not sure exactly what you talk about, a big developer or a smaller developer.
I what I would recommend is having, if you have a contract and you can have the ability to review a contract before you sign it, commit to it obviously. I would have a real estate attorney review that contract and find out where your liability is. Find out where your exposure is, and to see if there is a clause in there that gives the builder the right to back out if for some reason XYZ happens.
Oh, there's Kelly's remark at the bottom there. The builder's asking for more money, even though you have a contract. That something's not right there.
Yeah, that was what happened during COVID, right? Because the prices went up. People were canceling contracts because of the fact that prices were going up faster than they were selling. So they'd put it on they would have a contract. People would sign contracts before a shovel even broke the ground, but prices were appreciating so stinking fast that by the time they got to contract and started building, it was like, well, these prices have appreciated 10%. I'm not going to sell it to you for that much. I want more money. That kind of crap happened a lot. Polly says appraisal would have been for 135. Let's see. Appraisal would not have been for 135. Would have been for 89,000. So yes, seems upside down. I don't know. Just ready to buy. Yeah. So when you have an appraisal that's significantly less than what you're purchasing for, the way appraisals work is that the appraisal has to appraise for full value, typically, unless you're doing a large conventional loan with a large down payment and the lender waives that option. But typically with FHA, if the house is 145,000, if your contract price is 145,000, that the price needs to appraise at 145,000, regardless of how much money you're putting down. And if it appraises at $89,000, you have to show the ability to cover the gap between 145 and 89,000, and I think that's what the problem is, which is unfortunate.
Especially an accelerating market that's just people, multiple offers.
Yep.
That's exactly what's happening.
Satan says, I bought 2 houses in my lifetime so far, December and February. Wow. 2 houses in your lifetime. That's pretty good. That's awesome. David Matney, my friend in Omaha. Thank you for the super chat. Wait a minute. Hold on. I haven't, here we go. I haven't used my soundboard all night tonight. Jeepers creepers. Usually my friend Jackie yells at me because I'm like, trigger finger with my sounds. Thank you so much for that. Dave said, question, what is the oldest home you have seen in your market for sale? So, um, I actually sold a home in Wareham back in, this is about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Um, it was dated 16. It was actually
Oh,
town records had it as 1850, but I had a builder come in and it was a wreck. I had a builder come in, GC, that specialized in older homes. He went up in the attic and he dated the timber to late 1600s.
oh my, that's old.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It was
amazing.
old. It was like right around like 1690, 1700. It was is old. It's old. But I will tell you that I've had right in. I mean, I'm in Plymouth. It's one of the oldest towns. I almost said it
Wow.
was the oldest town, but not. It's not. I was corrected. It is not the oldest town, but it's pretty darn close, in the country. And yeah, we have homes right along the waterfront that are mid, say in the historic district, mid 1700s, late
That's
1700s, 1800s.
that's
So
amazing.
yeah, and let me tell you something. I don't like going into those houses because
It's like
I remember. I remember.
we call it
I
We call it the Winchester Mystery House. Have you heard of
yeah.
Winchester Mystery House?
Yeah, I remember one open house I was doing. This is about, oh gosh, this was like 20 years ago. And I was doing an open house at this house, totally off topic here, but just a fun story. And I was doing an open house and I was by myself in this open house. And, I had kind of, in Massachusetts, you have to ask if it's haunted or whatnot, like, but it's not something that the sellers have to, they don't provide that information if there's any murders or whatnot. But if you're asked, you have to comply. You have to tell them. So
Sure.
I asked the seller, I says, "Is anything going on in this house?" And they're like, maybe. And I'm like, okay. And I get really spooked easily. And I'm just standing there and, waiting for people to come in and stuff like that. And I see something peripheral. And I look over in the mantle and this candlestick that was over here is now over here. And I know it was over here because
Got
because it's like out of whack. It's like it's in a place where it shouldn't be. I'm like, oh, okay, I can
There
do
we go.
this. I stood in the doorway. I'm like, I couldn't
Uh,
wait. I couldn't wait to be like, okay, like I'm out of here. I never did an open house there ever again. It was crazy, but yeah, that was kind of spooky.
well, if you ever make your way out to California, and it's called the Winchester Mystery House. It's Sarah Winchester. Her husband was a manufacturer of Winchester guns. And it was there all my life. It's like 5 miles from my house. I never been there till like 20 years ago. And the house is just massive. And she was very superstitious. She just kept building, 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 building.
Oh,
And it was, just look it up. It's pretty amazing property.
that's
Still there.
crazy.
I do tours.
That is crazy. Polly says, I've been paying rents for a decade. Okay. I moved in 2014, paying $899 in December. Rents will be $1,800. It's cheaper to buy and pay a mortgage. So I'm buying. Plan to stay in our home for 30 years. Yeah. You know what? Depending on where you are, that over the last several years, that dynamic has changed. And I know in our area, it has not, has the prices of rent have increased so much.
Mhm.
And the prices of home, like it's right in line, but things are starting to shift. Things are starting to shift. And on the article that we were talking about earlier, when it comes to, the claim by President-elect saying that the housing, the immigration, addressing the immigration will help decrease home prices because it'll free up housing. Um, I think the thing that it will help with, not so much on the purchase side, but could potentially help on the rent side. Because a lot of these illegal, non documented, undocumented immigrants are not, they're not buying, they're renting. And if they are removed from their rentals, it could potentially open up a lot of rentals, which will bring down the rent. Again, supply and demand. You have five widgets and five people as opposed to one widget and five people. So potentially we could see some offset with rents. potentially. Jessica says we have a $30,000 for down payment, pre-approval, $500, but decided to be debt free. Good for you. Should we HELOC for flooring, windows, or should we be reserved for structural issues? No plans to sell. That's a tough question. I would be, again, I'm conservative and careful, and I would say, you know, you don't want to dip into your HELOC unless you absolutely positively need to. If your flooring and your windows are a situation where your windows are literally falling out of your house, you're investing in your house. My opinion, Brian, is that you shouldn't spend your HELOC on anything other than things that improve your home value. Period. You know, as opposed to using your HELOC to pay for your kids' college tuition. No. My financial advisor said no on that. But if you're improving the quality, if you're improving your home, I think that is something that I would consider.
And then she said also structural issues. So, I mean, is it something that's not safe, right? That needs to be taken care of?
Then that would be something I would definitely take care of. Kelly says the builder asked for more money even though you have a contract. Yeah.
I would talk to an attorney about that. It doesn't make sense for me.
100%. AP says there are different construction contracts, fixed price contracts and cost plus contracts, common for custom homes. So there's a possibility of the price increasing 100%. And that's why I would absolutely say you've got to have a real estate attorney review. The thing is with new construction contracts, and I'm sure I don't know if it's this way out your way, but with new construction here, the home builders don't allow any changes to the contract. You know, it is what it is. They put it in front of you and they say, either you sign it or you don't. We're not attaching addendums. That's how it is here. We're not attaching addendums. We're not changing any language. It is what it is. Take it or leave it.
Sure.
And that's kind of the situation. So it's the home buyers review it, have an attorney review it, make sure that they know what they're getting into, but you don't have any opportunity. There is no revision, language revisions or anything of that nature. Is it that way out on the West Coast?
Yeah, I don't know some of the smaller contracts. I do a lot of the bigger contracts. I mean, bigger developers that are pretty ironclad, but they're pretty straightforward. They're very reputable, and they don't really change things too much. Just maybe for the add-ons if they do any upgrades to the property, but nothing that what I'm seeing or hearing here.
I wanted to just as we're kind of wrapping up here, but I wanted to get back to some information that I picked that I wanted to touch on about the impacts, challenges of a construction labor shortage, and how can the construction industry fix the labor shortage, right? Because it's all the natural flow of things. Introduce a problem and then let's propose a fix, right? Close the loop. So this article that was talking about the job openings and so forth, and we kind of touched on this earlier, Brian. It says, how can the construction industry fix the labor shortage? Well, the National Center for Construction Education and Research estimates that 41% of the construction workforce will retire by 2031.
That's a blink of an eye.
That's in a blink of an eye. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. So this is a staggering statistic. However, the industry can take the following 3 actions to face the challenges of labor shortage in the construction industry. I talk a lot about this on this channel. It says recruit the next generation, invest in proper education and advertisement, and shake the industry stigma. AGC Chief Economist Ken Simonson says the biggest takeaway from this year's workforce survey is how much the nation is failing to prepare future workers for high-paying careers in fields like construction. It is time to rethink how the nation educates and prepares workers. I can't emphasize this enough. Like this if this doesn't happen, Brian, there's nothing we can do. If you have all these people retiring, and then you have the potential, no matter which way we slice it, there's going to be workers that are lost through the immigration policies, right?
what's interesting is things are changing, as we know. Technology is advancing so fast as we see it right in front of our eyes.
Yep.
You see construction being built by robots nowadays, machinery. You
Yep.
see 3D imaging. You can YouTube 3D imaging houses, concrete construction houses being built by machines, concrete poured in place without any humans doing it. It's sad, yes. I mean, but they're trying to get around this problem with labor shortages. And I think technology is something that's coming up pretty fast. That I think that's going to mitigate the problem. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I mean, which is kind of it's unfortunate because the fact is that we've got this younger generation that's coming out. They're graduating college. They're not necessarily getting into. I mean, a lot of them are getting high paying jobs, but a lot of them are not making the money enough to be able to afford a house
Yes.
when they could get into a construction industry where they're making twice is what they would make because
Yes.
and they're not carrying college debt. And they're not carrying college debt. You know, it's
So
just
then, what about all the artificial intelligence? We can go down a rabbit hole there. I mean, it's a lot of jobs, even white collar jobs, are getting taken from AI. And so
yeah.
what they're going to say in the future, it's going to be construction is where the industry is going to be in the future.
Well, that
And
is true because you can't. I'm sorry, like you're at this in our lifetime, we will not be seeing a robot welding an I-beam, or we're not going to see a robot, roofing.
what about plumbing? Going into an existing house and doing the plumbing, right? That's
Or
there's
how
going to be
about
some.
installing windows in a house that's older that where the windows aren't exactly plumb, and you have to make alterations, and you might have to customize shims, and you have to do things that are like outside the box that experienced, contractors know what to do. They know how to problem solve. It's not just an easy fix,
Yeah.
but they know how to do it. They know how to do it because they have experiential knowledge. And the robots aren't going to be able, they're not doing that.
So if you're young and you're aggressive, you could start a construction company and go down that road. I think it's going to be.
Make a bucket full of money. But I do think it starts at the top. I think it starts at the very, very beginning with schools. And maybe that's what we'll see out of this administration. In terms of incentivize, I mean, Mike Rowe is a big champion of this,
Sure.
incentivize schools
Hmm.
to, make, encourage kids that maybe they're going to college just because that's what they're being told to do. They have no desire to go to college, and you don't have to go to college. I am a college dropout. I never went to college. I went back to night school, but I never got my degree. But I'm like, my degree is is on the streets, I guess. I have taken the equivalent of a college degree with the number of resource, courses I've taken over the years and honing my craft, which is what you would do if you went into the trades. If that's what you would do to get, you don't and make a good living and, buy homes and do all the things. So yeah, it's 100%. Brian, I know you have a hard stop because you actually have an appointment West Coast. It's early over there,
It
so.
really, it really is. That's dinner time over there. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I wanted to just before we start to slowly wrap up here, I wanted to just say, if anyone is looking for to talk to Brian, I'm gonna have his link in the description, but check out his website. There you are. Oh,
Thank you
look
so
at
much.
that.
How see? No
What?
hair.
Well, I know, right? Is that just from years of being in
Uh,
real estate? Maybe I don't know.
10 years. Makes you look younger, right? No gray hair.
I know. Hey, what are you trying to say? I refuse to dye my hair. My friends all are dyeing their hair, and I'm like, you know what? The hell with it. This is what this au natural, and this is the way I'm supposed to be. So, if
Thanks
anybody's
for
got a problem with it, that's a them problem.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, 100%. I appreciate you being on the live stream. Thank you, everyone, for chiming in and contributing to the conversation. I appreciate you guys sharing your content, sharing your stories, all your struggles and whatnot. And, I appreciate you guys being here week after week. And onward we go, Brian. Try
100%.
one home buyer, one home seller at a time, trying to help people do the right thing and whatnot. So, hey, my parting words, everybody, be nice to your neighbor, be kind to your neighbor. Seek to understand if you don't agree on things, as opposed to standing your point. Try to understand where they're coming from. You don't have to agree. Look before you walk across the street, both ways, and don't talk to strangers. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday.
All right.
See ya. Ooh, I love this music. I love this music.